Want to find your seat for the event of your choice but can't get one that fits your desire or your budget? Well, my friends, SeatGeek has you covered. SeatGeek is the official sponsor of the Snake Sports Talk Show. With a list of over hundreds of events to choose from, SeatGeek will assure you that you won't miss your seat with the amazing view of your choice at the most affordable price. Whether it's looking for your best seat in the house of your favorite sports team, finding live concerts to get you closer to your favorite artist, or enjoying your spot at your favorite live shows, comedies, and more, SeatGeek has it all just for you. Go online to SeatGeek.com or download the app on your mobile device through Google Play and the App Store. And as a special offer before checkout, use promo code SNAKESPORTS and save yourself $20 off of your purchase of your first ticket and experience why SeatGeek is the most trusted ticketing app for your next event. Remember, that's SeatGeek.com and download the app on your phone with promo code SNAKESPORTS for $20 off and find your seat with SeatGeek.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
What is up, everybody? Here we go. We are live here on a Thursday night. Thanks for making us a part of your evening. We are live in 303 Denver, Colorado. That is that we got a lot of snow that may be headed this way starting tomorrow. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever and however you may be watching and listening. iHeartRadio, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, and TikTok. Those are where you could like, follow, and subscribe. Hit the bell button. Get updated and stay up to date on future and past shows. Appreciate all of you guys for tuning on in. Got a really good guest that's going to be joining us here in just about a couple of minutes. My friend Rap from Vocal Vike, he's joining us. We got lots to talk about from here. We know the NFL season is wrapped up, but not completely, as of course the off season is going on. But I am really, really excited to be here with you guys here tonight because there is a lot of things that we have to basically discuss. All right. So I just want to basically have the floor for at least a couple of minutes for this reason, because what you're about to hear is, you know me this well, and for years and years and years I have been doing this show. I offer the best, unbiased, real, and balanced takes on this show. And as you know, I don't involve many politics up on this show because that's not what this is based on. It is a very open, it is a very balanced, and it's a very, very entertaining, friendly show. And it has always been like that now for 4 years running. But many people have basically asked about my opinions of certain things. What I'm about to tell you, and again, I will make a note and make account for this, because if this honestly starts to get reported, or if this starts to get shut down, this is who the real me is. And you know what? You've heard it from me firsthand. What I'm about to talk about is some of these discussions that have been very uncomfortable, and they probably have been since COVID had basically ended and since it has started. It has been almost 4 years, and it has not been getting better. But let me just be honest with you about this, because we know politics and sports, it is not a beautiful match. It is not. I have been screaming out about that for years and years and years. Please get politics the hell out of sports. It's not fun, and at the same time, it kind of kills a lot of the fun, and it kills a lot of the entertainment of what sports is meant to be. It has been meant for myself. It's been meant for even for our guest Rap, and it's been meant for all of you, my listeners, my viewers. You guys watch sports all the time to get yourselves away from the crazy that's been going on for 3-4 years. So when I start hearing about news about this, that three jackasses with guns, yes, I've said it this way, that three jackasses with guns basically went up and shot up a parade. You're not a man. You're just a little spoiled brat. This is what you are, immature, not exactly somebody that can handle or take the heat. People that have known me, I've lived in Vegas my entire life. And yes, I have grown up in some of the not so nice and friendly areas, but it's what shaped me. It's what has grown me. It is what has basically taught me of what the world from many sides. I'd rather be multidimensional than just be 2D for people that understand that. My thing is, and as you see from here, I'm wearing every single one of my attire that explains my character. Yes, I am a responsible gun owner. Yes, I also do respect the Second Amendment and also make sure that our Constitution and our government does not rip that off. You respect that because it has been put together by our forefathers. But I'm also somebody who understands what the consequences are by the time you hold a piece of weaponry and by the time that you pull a trigger. Okay? And this is one of the consequences that I'm sure that these three individuals are probably going to end up going with and are probably going to suffer with for the rest of their lives. One person dead and 10 injured, and many of them as victims are kids. Are you out of your freaking mind? And by the way, a number you guys never have realized, but there has been 49 mass shootings now. 49. There has been no solution to this problem. None. Not even a respected and strict gun reform, let alone stricter background checks. I'm a responsible gun owner and I know the consequences. And by the way, I also support and respect a lot of my friends who are responsible gun owners, whether they're civilians, law enforcement, or military branched veterans, current or retired. They all know the difference and they all know the consequence behind pulling that trigger. It is a freaking football game. I know a lot of you are pissed because of the fact that the Chiefs win the Super Bowl again. I know a lot of people are thinking, oh my God, Travis Kelce and this Taylor Swift, grow up. Listen, I haven't been honestly appointed to be talking about this kind of topic, and I usually don't like talking about this topic because that's not what this show is based upon. But sometimes when I see stuff like this that clashes in with sports, it's very hard to hold back a lot of this stuff. But I keep it real. I keep it 110% unbiased and balanced. My thought with this is my show has always been open for a lot of people and for a lot of viewers and for a lot of listeners. My personality and my character is I don't care exactly how many of my interviewers or my viewers and listeners are, whether your backgrounds are, you're white, you're black, you're Mexican, you're Asian, you're straight, you're gay. It doesn't matter to me. What matters is that we're here on a platform talking about sports, entertaining all of you so that you don't have to go through exactly all entirely of your life 24/7 of the harsh realities that we know life gives us every single day. This is what we provide, quality content to basically escape the realms of what life already is. So grow up. This is the thing. Yes, the Kansas City Chiefs won again. Yeah, it kind of ticks me off, but you know what? My team could honestly shape and do better. It's fine. We have a villain in the league. And yeah, that's fine. But you know what? Taylor Swift, she drove a lot of viewership to sports. And I love it. She's not the only artist and entertainer and celebrity out there that's driving it. Could you imagine how many views that we got from Detroit Lions games alone when Eminem is in the stands? Come on. It doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is, You just gave them extra juice for the Kansas City Chiefs to basically revamp, rejuice, and get themselves back into when the season starts back up, they have a reason to play for. If you don't think I know what I'm talking about, trust me. I come from a hometown that has had one of the most horrible mass shootings in my hometown. I know what I'm talking about here. But at the same time, don't be an idiot. Don't be disrespectful. And I think that that's the problem with what's happening in our society and in our country. We do not have enough good old boys in our country. We have too many of these spoiled little emotional brats. Sorry if that hurts your feelings, but listen, it's true. You got to raise them up right. I should not ever have to question any parent's parenting. Don't parent me as a parent when it comes to if my son or daughter is basically behaving themselves, they're being respectful, they're holding the door open for you, and they know the difference between right and wrong. I should never have to be scolded about parenting. Don't even start with that. But I thought, honestly, this is ridiculous, but it's what needed to be said. I know for a lot of you guys, you may not have seen me fully like this, but I'm the kind that I'm like, I don't like this in sports. Yeah, I absolutely despise it when politics are involved in sports. But usually when the real me kicks in and I start to really dig in deep, this is what I am. And I'm very, very grateful, respectful, and very much. I mean, you have no idea how much of a blessing that it is to have the best people in the industry I collaborate and I connect with, the best viewers and listeners that I have that tune into the show anytime that this is live. By the time I hit that live button, I am very beyond grateful for every single one of you. And I'm always open and welcoming with open arms. It's what I come from. It's what I've been born with. So please, please, for the love of God, our maker, stop it with this hate. Stop it with this absolute shenanigans. And especially when it comes to you're putting people's lives in danger. Enough with this. It needs to be better. We need to have better background checks. We need to have better reforms. We're not saying take them all away, but they need to be monitored. And at the same time, if you really want to pin the blame on something, pin the blame on the black market that nobody seems to be talking about, not even in mainstream media. Enough is enough. This is ridiculous. We need to be better as a society. We need to respect our elders. We also need to respect the fact that if a team just won who kicked your team's asses, take it, but be ready for the next week when you face the next opponent. That's it. That's all I have to say. My rant is over. I'm glad I got it off my chest. Look, I've been a part of many controversial topics that I never liked talking about, but I know as America's reasonable and balanced voice, I got to talk about it. All right. I don't want to make the floor as, awkward when it comes to stuff like this. But however, I do appreciate every single one of you guys for supporting and tuning into the show. And so joining me, my good friend who has been putting on the grind when it comes to the Minnesota Vikings, because there is an awful lot we have to talk about with the offseason. And so joining us here via the Global Satellite Network, presented by StreamYard, my man, Rap. I've always said this, that,
my guy.
I'm telling you, man, I'm like, look, sports is an absolute blessing for us when it comes to, we try to keep our mental health in check and all the rest of it. So it's like, when I see stuff like this, it's just like, it works me up to the point. And look, you could either call it conservative or liberal. I don't care. But it's just, politics have no room in sports whatsoever. But when it comes to stuff like that, take it like a man. I've grown up in harsh areas nobody has ever seen before. So I know when it comes to, hey, if you got street smarts and you've grown up in places like this, you have no idea what you've ever experienced in your life. But if it makes you and it doesn't break you, you're doing something right in your life. And that's where I'm like, I appreciate all the people that I have on here on the show and the people that watch and listen. But But enough of that. But the thing we really got to talk about the matter at hand, because there is a lot of off-season stuff that we've got going on. But I do want to start with the Super Bowl as basically recapping it, because in the end, I thought this was the most amazing Super Bowl that we've had. And people would think it was boring, but in the end, it was great defenses that were basically battle tested. But at the same time, the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, they've built a dynasty. This is what they are, and they've become the NFL's target because they want to be better than them, and they want to basically stop this potential dynasty from possibly growing. I mean, what was your thoughts on this Super Bowl? Because in the end, I look at the Niners and I'm just like, there is room for NFC teams to basically get better to eventually show their faces in the Super Bowl.
Absolutely, absolutely, man. First of all, man, I want to thank you, Jake, for having me on the show, man. I've always been a supporter of your show, and great take at the beginning of the show, man. It needed to be said, man. So and you laid it down, man. So props for that, man. Much respect for that. As far as the Super Bowl goes, man, I agree with you. I actually thought it was a great game. It was competitive. It was close, like we wanted it to be. I mean, it wasn't, it went into overtime. I mean, what more could you ask for in a Super Bowl? You know what I mean? To go into overtime, I mean, that's good. And not just overtime of like a 3-3 score. Like they were putting up points, man, and moving the ball and stuff. So you got to be thankful for that as far as the entertaining side of it, especially if you don't have a dog in the fight. See, I didn't have a dog in the fight. I'll say this. I had a half a dog in the fight. So people know my wife's from Kansas City. So like she's from Topeka, Kansas. So like all her family. So that part of my married in family, they're all Chiefs diehard. So when it comes time, I celebrate a little bit. It feels kind of funny inside for me because I'm so loyal to the Minnesota Vikings. But for a couple hours on a Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday, I'm able to sit there and kind of bask in it with her and stuff like that. But yeah, man, it was a great game, man. The NFC, like you said, and this obviously has something to do with my team that I root for, the Minnesota Vikings. There is a window there for teams to get in and get a chance at Patrick Mahomes. Now, AFC is a little different. I think Patrick Mahomes is going, if not every year for the next 3-4 years, maybe every other year. Like there's going to be, I'm sure he's going to be there a couple more times before it's all said and done. So, that I think that I said this, Jake, on one of my last shows. I think what teams need to do, like the Minnesota Vikings in particular, because that's who I root for. So that's who I really talk to. And I think the goal going into the season should be, how do you beat that team, right? Like, how do you beat Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid? Because at the end of the day, that's who's going to be in your way most likely when it's all said and done. Now, there's a possibility another team, Justin Herbert, starts hitting or something, and it gets, that I heard you talk about that on one of your last shows where you were saying, hey, Harbaugh and Herbert, they might can challenge them. So, we'll see what happens, man. But man, again, great Super Bowl, Jay. Great Super Bowl, man.
Yeah, I thought so. And honestly, I mean, like I told people, in the previous show when I had Nikki on here, is just that, my hometown, you want to get better with, production and media. Vegas is just a place that's just been blowing everybody away with just the media production, the halftime show, and just so much more. And it was just like, it was a great show by the end of the year, And so, but you're right. I mean, the fact of the matter is like, look, the whole strategy of basically beating the Chiefs is you're not trying to basically out Mahomes. You're trying to basically understand of what is he good at? Where exactly are people going to get open for Mahomes to throw to? And at the same time, do we have a closed lane if he decides, you know what? If all my weapons are taken away, I'm just going to run a 15-yarder for first down. So it's like things like that people have to really kind of pay attention to. But when I look at the Niners, and then the news just broke out that they fired Steve Wilks after everything. I mean, they've gone through two different coordinators who I thought were A-pluses, from Robert Saleh and D'Amico Ryans. And so with Steve Wilks, part of this reason is that because that there was a point where Shanahan had to take a timeout because the defense was obviously set into a position where Kansas City was going to figure them out. And Shanahan didn't like that. So he had to burn a timeout. Did it kind of feel like that there was something going through Steve Wilks' mind, that this was just kind of the end of the road for him?
Steve Wilks, like, to me, and I'm going to tell you, like, I think he was actually he was an available candidate, I believe, when we were going through our thing with the defensive coordinator, if I'm not mistaken. You correct me. Do you remember? I think that was, so obviously it wasn't last year. So the 2022 season, because didn't the Panthers wind up letting him go kind of early? And I think he was on our radar. This is my thing, man, with the 49ers, their defense. I think when it comes to, and this is regardless, I'm not going to take credit away from the coaches, but I will say, like, the players that they have so many. To me, they have a good amount of playmakers on that defense. They draft really well when it comes to the defensive side of the ball. I think that benefited them. So, and honestly, I want to ask you this, Jake, do you think he deserved to be fired? Do you think he deserved to be fired after that game?
I think that, sometimes, and I'm not for, coaches that if I know that they've built a track record of success, I don't see them, honestly getting fired. But if there was somewhere behind closed doors that maybe you and I may not have heard about that, this kind of built up the turmoil. I mean, think about it this way. Look at the relationship between Brian Dable and Wink Martindale. Yeah. Wink Martindale just basically said, peace, I'm out. And then this whole thing just kind of came around. So I don't know if that's kind of the case, but I am if your track record success speaks for it and I see it on the field, that's where I get questionable about the firing. But if this was basically something where it ticked off, of all people, an offensive-minded coach where he's just like, I'm trying to get us to score, I'm trying to get us in better position, but it's like you kind of took a step above me. That's kind of the thing where I'm like, this is kind of interesting how they handle it.
I think it's interesting. I agree. Like, to me, when I seen the news, and I actually seen it, so I follow a podcast called Black Panther Podcast, and they, it's my boy Q, and they cover the Panthers, and they did a big show on it and stuff like that. I think that they made the wrong move. Now, I can't remember. I think they just kind of moved up the linebackers coach or somebody. I can't. No, I don't follow the 49ers too heavy. Like, you know me, man. I'm strictly majority Vikings. Like, I obviously follow the league, but I'm majority Vikings. But again, to me, I think it was a bad move on their point. Like, and it's one of those things where, hey, you lost the Super Bowl. Somebody has to take. You got to do something, right? So somebody got to get this axe. That's just, I think it's one of those situations. Like, hey, we lost. The fans are mad. You know what we're going to do, guys? We're going to fire this guy because he's the newest on the staff, so as far as I'm concerned. And you know what? Our defense allowed a touchdown in overtime. So you know what? He has to go. Scapegoat. You know what I mean? I think that's the situation. And maybe they think like, hey, if we do this, maybe it'll make the fans kind of calm down a little bit and say, hey, we're pushing to try to get better. We know what we need to do. So that's really my take on that, man. I don't know what else, why they would have fired him. I think he'll get a job though. I do believe he'll get another job.
Yeah, I think honestly, and there's a difference between of like what your track record is as a head coach and what your track record is as a coordinator, whether both offensively or defensively. I'm sure he'll get a job somewhere especially for a DC that I don't know too many teams that might look for one, but I mean, there's going to be teams that's going to want improvement on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
But I'm not, for me, maybe for a different topic another time, maybe this is kind of opening the door that I'm almost thinking that if something were to happen with Robert Saleh with the Jets, if he doesn't get this team winning, and again, I pin all the blame on Aaron Rodgers with his manipulative mindset of like, buying Jets fans into this. I could see that to where we could see a reunion there with Kyle Shanahan, but maybe that's what it's doing. But that'll be it for a different topic.
Yeah. That's a good one though. I can see that. I can definitely see that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. So let's talk about the Minnesota Vikings because this was a different look. And I did predict this, that I felt like this was a year that the Detroit Lions were basically going to make noise. And because this is a head coach that we know this is who he is. He's real. He's authentic. And Ben Johnson now, he's not going anywhere. I kind of wished he did not throw the narrative of basically saying that he didn't want the Washington job because it's a bunch of basketball guys. I would have been okay with, look, I'm willing to take the pay raise, but we've got unfinished business. I don't want to go down to as an offensive coordinator who's just great at the first half, but yet can't convert in the second half. I want to change that. I'd be okay with that narrative. The Packers the Packers are showing themselves why they are such a stable organization and proving Aaron Rodgers wrong, because now Jordan Love, man, that's a franchise quarterback when I see one. And the fact that he is building with a very young Packers team and Matt LaFleur has reached another level, that kind of gives me some stuff about, the NFC North. And then the question marks is, do you or do you not take a quarterback for Chicago? So Minnesota, we know, has a lot of question marks. And the last time that we talked, this was about the quarterback position. And we've said it, that I thought this was going to be a year where maybe Minnesota might have convinced themselves and said, hey, we could go get Caleb Williams if we decided to go this route. But they instead wanted to go with Josh Dobbs, and it didn't work as much. You got some stuff. So how do you kind of presume that this offseason is going to look like, and what's your perspectives for the Vikings? Because there's a lot of buzz up into there.
Yeah. Yeah. So, man, I can go on for hours, man. You know this, Jake. That's my type of question, right? But like the truth is this, like, and I'm glad you said that. Like, so when we were at that crossroad where Kirk Cousins went down and we brought in Josh Dobbs, I was actually surprised that he was able to win 2 games. You know what I mean? I think, yeah, he won 2 games. I was actually surprised that he did that because, I felt like, okay, what I took from it was this. It actually gave me a little bit of hope, and the people that follow my channel know is I say, okay, they went out their way. They could have went and got a Flacco because he was on the couch at the moment. There was, I'm sure there were some other guys they could have called that had a more similar play style than Kirk Cousins. Obviously, not as good as Kirk Cousins because they would have been on somebody's football team if they were. But again, the type of play style, a pocket passer, let's just say that. But when my team went out and got a guy like Josh Dobbs, a light bulb went off in my head because everybody knows that I'm a big fan of a quarterback that can improvise. I feel like it's needed. Okay. Now you have Joe Burrows, which to me, I tend to remind people though that Joe Burrow actually knows how to improvise too, though. He might be known as a pocket passer, but he knows he's smart. He's intentional with his improvisation. And that's what I like about him. That's why he's so great. But again, Kirk Cousins to me is a guy that just strictly pocket passer. Okay. Like he would have been great in the early 2000s. And when I seen us go get Dobbs, I was like, okay, boom. This is the type of quarterback they want. It might not be the level. Josh Dobbs, obviously, they know like, hey, but let's bring him in so we can kind of get a vision to see what it would be like if we do bring in Jaden Daniels or anybody that's mobile that can also run and throw the football. And, I actually enjoyed it because I was like, okay, I know this is temporary. I knew when we got Dobbs, I was like, yo, this guy is not, he's not keeping the job for one, because if you look at his track record, man, he just doesn't win football games. Oh, yeah. Right? Like he just doesn't win. He had a good game against the Dallas Cowboys. He battled with the Ravens when he was in Arizona before we got him. So that's kind of what pushed our team to go get him. Like, hey, he was competitive against some good defenses. But again, he still isn't going to win you many football games regardless of how you slice it. And this year right here is the year that the Minnesota Vikings need to go into the draft and get a quarterback. And I'm going to tell you why. Because like you said, you stated it, the Bears, they're building. All right. And I'm going to tell you right now, they're closer than we think. They are closer than we think to us, in my opinion, because I think if they have a draft, if their draft pans out this season right here, it's gonna be game time. All right, it's gonna be them. Like you said with the Packers, Jordan Love. All right, now what we're doing is if we extend Kirk Cousins, we're already behind the 8 ball because we waited a year. We waited a year. We're already a year behind the Bears now. The Bears decided to just be in rebuild mode. And I think what the Vikings are doing and what really irritates me is competitive rebuild. See, me, I don't believe in that. See, what I believe in is you either are in rebuild or you're being competitive. Which one? You can't, just trying to be in both is going to get you 7 games, 8 games. You're going to maybe back into a wild card game. But again, you're not competing for a Super Bowl. And if you're not competing for a Super Bowl, then what are we doing? Right? Like, that's my opinion. Like, what's the point? That's why we play the game. We play the game to hold up the Lombardi. So, I just want my team to go in, get a quarterback, man. Let's get on track with the rest of the teams in our division because, again, the Lions are already there, right? And they drafted a quarterback in Hendon Hooker that we don't know what he could possibly be the next thing sitting behind Jared Goff when it's time and step right in. Now, obviously, he's a little older, but still yet, there'll still be some tread on the tires, I believe. And, we're going to be behind 8 ball if we keep pushing this Kirk can down the road now. I want to know your feeling on Kirk too, man, Jay, because I think you might have said it last time we did a show, but let's revisit that conversation too, man.
Yeah, my thought on Kirk Cousins, man, is just honestly like most quarterbacks that it feels like that, it's too hard for rip the Band-Aid off. Because at the end of the day, what has Kirk Cousins really brought to the table for the Vikings other than the fact that you got embarrassed against the Giants in the first round of this whole thing? And then at the same time, do I need to go on more and more about primetime records? It's just like, look, I want a quarterback that is destined to win, and that's winning both primetime games. That's winning playoff games because that translates that's a promising future the franchise has. And that's my thought with the Vikings upon this is because I think Kirk Cousins, he started to transition to where he's just going to be a bridge quarterback. He's going to be a bridge quarterback for the next one coming in. And I wouldn't be surprised, if a team like Atlanta or maybe possibly, if depending on this Russell Wilson thing in Denver, people are even talking about, them bringing in Kirk Cousins. I'm like, oh, to hell with it. I'd rather draft a quarterback before I do that because all they do is bring in veteran quarterbacks. They've never drafted and developed since John Elway. So it's like, this whole thing is, I think they need to draft a quarterback very, very much. And there's many of them, and we'll get to this. So My thing with Minnesota is, now I want your take on this as a side note, because they went on from Rick Spielman, and then they have this general manager. Can you tell the difference between both those general managers? Because now I feel like Washington has got themselves a really good player personnel upstairs next to Adam Peters there. Could you see the difference between this general manager for Minnesota and then what Rick Spielman was really trying to accomplish there?
Yeah, so Rick Spielman so far, and this year is crucial for Kwesi. This year is really crucial. I'm a firm believer in when you hire a new GM, you can't judge him off year 1 and you can't judge him off year 2. Yep. I'm a firm believer in year 3 is when you really can start seeing what type of guy you're dealing with, because you got to think he's coming into a situation where there's a bunch of guys on contract from the last regime. There's a bunch of things going on, and he has to kind of come in and kind of move things around, fix things, and get them to how he wants them. Now, what I can say is that so far, his drafting has been pretty bad. All right. Now we got Jordan Addison, but that's about it. Okay. Now there's maybe you can maybe add a Mekhi Blackman from USC, the DB we got. He's showing some potential. Maybe could be a second string type guy, something like that. But Jordan Addison is it. All right. We wasted a pick on a safety in the first round, his very first year, that hasn't seen the field. Okay. And we had Kyle Hamilton, and I'm gonna tell you, Kyle Hamilton is going to be tied to Kwesi and Lewis Cine for the entirety of their careers if Lewis Cine doesn't pan out, right? Because he was there. And it's like you went for a safety, you traded back to get a safety anyway when you had a generational talent. How'd you miss that when it was sitting right there? All you had to do is just turn the paper in. You know what I mean? Just turn the paper in. He's there. So, because I'm a believer in, it's some Vikings fans, and I'm sure it might be like this across fan bases, but two and 3 are not better than 1 all the time. Like a lot of people think like, oh, well, let me accumulate picks. Bro, if there's just get the good football player, man, because you'll realize that's going to make up where like you want to get 2 or 3 guys for what? To sit on the bench, and, if somebody gets injured, they come in. That's okay, man. Get Kyle Hamilton. But again, Kwesi, he's very strategic. What I do like about him compared to Rick Spielman is big on spreading. I'm taking this from my guy Dave, man, because he told me spreading the peanut butter, right? So what that means is taking these contracts like Kirk Cousins. That's why we're in the situation we're in now, and keep pushing it down, just spreading it out over years. And even when these guys aren't on the team, we're going to be paying them. Where Kwesi has showed a trend of kind of like the Davenport, the Byron Murphys, the free agency brought in. Hey, 1 year prove it deal. Prove to us that you can play. Prove to us that you're worth staying on this team. And if so, then we'll extend you. But you know what? We're not just going to extend you before we see you playing purple. So, and he's big on that, and I kind of like that, right? Like I kind of like if you can get a guy to commit to that type of deal, I'm okay with that. That's a savvy move to me because it's like, hey man, show me what you got. Now, when you're talking about, we have a big contract on our hands that I'm sure we can touch on with JJ, and that's a little different story. But when you're talking about a guy coming off an injury like Davenport and stuff that had a half a sack, it's like, yeah, your name might have rang bells 2 years ago, but I'm not about to pay you crazy money and extend you for so many years. And when you didn't do anything last year, let's do a 1-year deal. And I like that about Kwesi, to where Rick Spielman probably would have gave this guy a 3-4 year deal, because of what he did 3 years ago. And he was really big on that. So far, though, 2 categories. Rick Spielman is winning when it comes to drafting, in my opinion. Kwesi's winning in the negotiation as far as bringing in players, making them prove it. We can move off easy outs because he's a stock guy. He came from the stock market. He's from Wall Street. You know what I mean? So he's big on, low risk, high reward. And sometimes it seems like it's backfiring in the draft, but we'll see, man. Year 3, man, this is going to be a big year for us. We'll see.
You know what? That is a fantastic nugget to really kind of keep an eye on, because you know what? Like, hopefully he can be able to change that narrative to where he sticks to exactly that plan. But you're right. He's got to ace this draft, because in the end, I mean, the last thing you want to be is you want to be the back pocket in the NFC North, to where it's like the Packers, the Lions, and then potentially, I don't know. You might get lucky with Chicago, but it's like in the end, they want to be better. They want to be a better franchise. They want to win. They want to be able to make the playoffs and start translating from there. So, my biggest thing is, and the whole talk is the talk that's also surrounding not only just for Justin Jefferson, but it's also surrounding the talks of Daniel Hunter. We know that he's been in this franchise for a long time since he started there, and he has been quite the offensive disruptor. Now, the big thing is like, you got to think about how much this defense has deteriorated. We went from Patrick Peterson to Eric Kendricks, and now potentially to Daniel Hunter. And the only X factor still left is my man Harrison Smith. Mm-hmm. How could we possibly be able to reshape and revamp this defense? Your thoughts on that? Other names, Everson Griffin and even Linval Joseph. That's going to be tough to really have to replace.
Yeah. So I think, like, and this goes back to the Rick Spielman situation. Like, we're in between a rock and a hard place at the moment, right? So it's gonna be like, you can make it work for 1 year, like, because you can always make the numbers work for 1 year. I feel like that in the NFL, like, because you'll have a couple of these superstar players, and you're like, how are you gonna pay this and pay that and pay that? You could do it for 1 year, trust me, but you got to think outside of that 1 year, because it's going to affect you 2 years, 3 years down the road. It's going to affect you in a big way. And I think what Rick Spielman did back in 2019, between 2018 to 2020, now we're about to feel it. All right, and now we have Kirk Cousins, we have Justin Jefferson, we have Danielle Hunter. Now Harrison Smith, in my opinion, I've said this and I stated this, I think it's time to hang it up. Now, I love Harrison Smith. He's one of my favorite Vikings of all time. Love him, dog. You know what I mean? But I think his position, when you're talking about that safety position, I'm thinking it's starting to become easier to replace. I think it's starting to become almost like, and I hate the downgrade running backs, but you know how there was that era, which was maybe a couple years ago up until now, where people just think, hey, you don't have to pay a running back. You can just go get one and just plug them in and it just turn into whatever, and I argued people about that all the time. Like, no, there's a difference between a good running back and a not good running back. And you will know if you don't have a good one. And we figured that out the hard way this year as Minnesota Vikings. You know what I mean? But again, I think the safety position is the same when and the money just makes sense. Like, if we move off of Harrison Smith, it just makes sense. Like, we get so much, we save so much. Like, it's just, he's in that position where it's like, dang, like, are you bringing, because he did have a slump year. You know what I mean? He still was effective out there as far as leadership and stuff goes. But as far as production, getting his interceptions, he usually gets big hits and all that. He's getting up there, man. You know what I mean? He's getting up there, man. So hopefully we move off of him and he's obviously going to be Vikings Ring of Honor, but the Neil Hunter will not be a Viking. And it's because most likely of what Rick Spielman did. And, we've always played with Daniil Hunter's money too. That's another thing.
Yeah.
Stand-up guy. He wants to be a Minnesota Viking. But the organization, every time it's time to talk about Daniil Hunter's contract, we always are stuck and trying to just throw him crumbs and make him take a team-friendly deal. In my opinion, I like him so much, I think he needs to go and get what he deserves. You know what I mean? Because we do have bigger problems to fill, and I would love to be able to keep Daniil and keep this person and that person. But to me, I'm leaning more towards rebuild for my team. So a lot of my answers are going to be more of, hey, it's time to let the guys go, man. You know what I mean? It's time to let the guys go. It's time to let's start this. Let's go ahead and just start this operation now. So we can, 2 years down the line, hopefully we can be competing for a Super Bowl or 3 years, So
Yep.
that's my thing, man.
I mean, I think about this. I mean, they got to find a way to really back this up for the defense because, look, man, I've been following this league for years, and when I watched Minnesota over the years, I remember the years watching them when they had Kevin and Pat Williams, they had Ben Lieber, they had a lot of really good linebackers, and then they had damn good safeties, especially when I would watch, Darren Sharper when the time when he was there, and then watching the Antoine Winfield. I mean, and now we got his kid. I mean,
Here we go.
that'd be interesting that if
Yep.
his kid decided to be in the same colors as his dad.
That'd be nice. That'd be nice. If we can make that work, then let's do it. You know what I mean? Obviously, he's going to be a premium. And that was my thing. I think the way the league going, and this is just my opinion on me just watching the game and stuff. I just don't think you should pay premium for a free safety anymore. I just don't think so. In my opinion. I don't think so. I think in that case, I think 2 is better than 1. In that case, to me, like if you don't have a Kyle Hamilton, like if you don't have a generational like real generate, like then I think 2 is better than 1. You could swap guys out. You can do 3 safeties, stuff like that to make up for things. So, that's why I wouldn't want to pay Antoine Winfield what he deserves. I don't want to discredit him. He deserves it. Let another team pay him that still runs that style of defense. We run a little unorthodox defense now with Brian Flores. So I just don't think the money would make it worth it.
Yeah. So, and that's kind of interesting because, yeah, I felt the same exact way, even when it came to Derwin James, because of the fact of, I've always said now that looking at this league, you've got to have some younger cats that are out there that know how, because it's hard to have a corner now. It's very hard to have one because a lot of them are transitioning to wide receivers. But if you can honestly get guys that can cover up and really play the way, because again, I feel like there's a lot of times we just need to have, a Richard Sherman 2.0 in the world, because guys that could literally be on the wide receivers, give them fits, and really make some big time stops.
Champ Bailey's, man, like the Champ Bailey's, like go back Darrelle Revis's. We don't have that anymore.
I mean, yeah, man.
We don't have that anymore.
Oh man. Well, it is kind of interesting because as we kind of outlook this is, let's hypothetically think that if going into this case, that if all these 5, maybe potentially 6 or 7 quarterbacks are legit as they say they are, maybe there could be a point where Minnesota could throw a deal and maybe potentially move up if that is the case, because we don't know what the outlook's, because I can already guarantee you a couple teams that I think are going to take quarterbacks. Chicago, right now, they're kind of feeling like they're up in the air, but they could take a quarterback. New England, definitely a quarterback for sure. Washington, they could take a quarterback if that's the case, learn a new offense, but that does kind of suck for Sam Howell. I mean, I would have given him another year and get a better offensive line in front of him. But, and then you got, I would also say Denver at that point should take a quarterback. So, I mean, you could make the logical case that if, you're moving off of defensive pieces, getting younger, getting stronger, and maybe also, too, getting them for cheaper that the cap really can handle. I think that is kind of safe to say you might give up a player, get some draft picks, and maybe move up. And then as that outlook goes up, I've been telling you about this. I was on your show and I felt like I'm just real confident of some of those quarterbacks that could be potential sleepers. Bo Nix being one of them, but maybe potentially Michael Penix. I mean, what's your thought going into the draft with some of these quarterbacks?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I'm gonna disagree with you on Bo Nix. Like, I'm not a big Bo Nix fan. Um, and there's a couple reasons why I'm not a Bo Nix fan. First of all, he played a ton of college football, and he's not a bad quarterback. Like he was really good college quarterback in Oregon. You know what I mean? Like balled out this year. Obviously, could have been in the Heisman. I don't know, man. I think Bo Nix to me, he just gives me kind of he gives me kind of backup quarterback vibes. Like so, when I look for quarterbacks, right, and I'm far from a professional scout and stuff, but what I do look for is I look for a certain it factor that has like you got to have like superstars spewing out of you at least and it's my opinion. You know, it's all just me. Like what I see. If I look at a guy and say he's a superstar, you could look at him and say, no, that guy's gonna be a bum. Like, what do you see superstar about that? Because I'm gonna tell you who my guy is. See, my guy is JJ McCarthy, right? And a lot of people talk about the number. Now, I like Penix too. I'll tell you, I like Penix. He's probably number 5 on my list, but I do like him, and I wouldn't be mad. Penix would be a guy I wouldn't be mad if the Vikings traded down from or got a defender at 11, right? A top defender, traded back maybe up into the late first or maybe early second and grab Penix. I think that would be I would be okay walking away from that draft as far as the first 2 rounds go. But JJ McCarthy to me, man, like, and I've been advocating for him. Part of it is a little biased. I'm a Michigan fan, but I'm gonna tell you, man, there's a difference, man. JJ McCarthy's a dog, man. Like it's the mental for me. And a lot of people just look at the box scores of he doesn't throw. It's they look at the volume and they look at the numbers of, well, he only threw for this and he only has this many yards and this many touchdowns. You have to actually watch JJ McCarthy and take away the volume, but just look at what he does and judge it by that on the crucial downs, man, the third down efficiency. You know, when they go for it on fourth, when they actually need a first down, the play he makes, the way he throws on the run. Like, there's no quarterback coming into this draft that has a better throwing form than JJ McCarthy on the move. I'm telling you right now, you got to go watch the film. Let the film tell you. Believe your eyes. I'm telling you, man, this dude's a dog. And what I do love about him too is last year when we lost in the Rose Bowl, his press conference after that game, because I look at this when I look for quarterbacks, I go and look at how they stand in the huddle. I look how they talk after the game. Do they keep their head and shoulders up after the game, or are they slouched? I look at all of that because I'm big on character. Like, show me who you really are. And when he went on that podium and said, you know, hey, we apologize to the Michigan fans, but don't worry. I promise we're coming back next year. And he kept his word, you know, and he did. We went back and he won it. You know what I mean? And there's not many guys that will go on the podium and say stuff like that and bet on themselves. There's a couple in the NBA. Shaq did it. Remember when he's, oh, we're bringing championships. You know, I'm sure MJ's done it. You know what I mean? LeBron's done it. The greats do it. Lamar Jackson promised the Super Bowl to Baltimore. Now he fell short, but he's trying, man. He's getting, you know, he's trying his hardest. And I would love for him to win the Super Bowl this year, man. I was pulling for Lamar. But again, man, you know, I like JJ. And then my main one that I would trade up for would be Jaden Daniels. Like, so I like Jaden Daniels. I had a chance to talk to his high school coach. He reached out to me after I did a film study on him. It was just telling me things about him and his characteristics and stuff. And it just made me fall in love with him even more. Just real humble guy and, you know, a baller, man, holds all the records. What's appealing to me with Jaden Daniels, which is crazy, is Jaden Daniels, Bryce Young, and CJ Stroud are all within a 30-mile radius. They grew up all like, could you imagine you would have 3 starting quarterbacks. What's the odds of that? I'm like, yo, if you have a son and you want him to be a quarterback, move there. You know what I'm saying? Because obviously
the same camps, everything. Like, man, that's awesome. I mean, good God, we saw the best out of CJ Stroud this year. Man. I think, honestly, I'm hoping Dave Canales could really shape Bryce Young because, again, I don't like their owner, but at the same time, you got to do what's right for the players and for the fans.
Yeah, Tepper. Is it Tepper, right?
Dave Tepper.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah.
Throwing drinks at your own fan base.
Oh, man.
Come on now, like.
Yeah.
But that's crazy that the fact that all 3 of them, they're all in the same place. They're all
in the same place. Crazy,
man.
And I'm gonna tell you, I'll give you a stat though, Jake, that the head coach told me is, you know, out of those 3, out of everybody really, Jaden Daniels, he said, is the best of all of them as far as high school football goes. Like, he broke all the records. He broke all of their records and stuff like that. So like, he holds all the all the records when it comes to that. So like, and that was something that's intriguing to me because, obviously those guys are kind of panning out. I think Bryce Young just has a kind of a bad side of the stick, man, on the Panthers. No weapons, like you said, ownership. They're still figuring things out over there in Carolina. I think I still have hope in Bryce Young. My boy hates him. He's a Panthers fan, but I'm like, yo, give him some time. I mean, yeah, he's small. It kind of makes you doubt him a little bit, but I'm gonna tell you, man, that kid was a baller, and I think he'll figure it out. But CJ Stroud, why I like CJ Stroud so much, and I gotta say, I doubted CJ Stroud. All right. Like going into last year's draft, I was like, yo, I wouldn't touch CJ Stroud with a 10-foot pole. And part of it, I think it's my Michigan in me because I don't like Ohio State. But again, I just always felt like Ohio State quarterbacks don't pan out because of the talent they always get at wide receiver. They always have the top wide receivers in the nation most of the time. So it's like, are you really a good quarterback, or are your receivers just always the number ones in the dang nation and you can just toss them the rock and they're going to make plays regardless, right? You had like 3 of them. You had 3 receivers on your team that could been wide receiver ones for any other team in the nation dang there, So I tried to incorporate that, but CJ Stroud proved me wrong, and I couldn't be happier, man. I'm so happy for the kid, but because it gave me hope, like for my fan base that says, oh, well, you can't get a rookie. If we get a rookie quarterback, we're only going to win 3 games. And I'm like, in what world? You know what I mean? In what world? Like, where do you get that from? You know what I mean?
And it's funny because here's the thing is you have an offensive innovator in Kevin O'Connell. So how could we, how could we possibly think that, either one of these guys, Jaden Daniels or JJ McCarthy, Kevin O'Connell meets him in the first time in camp and is just like, hey, try this way. And, and really kind of helps to just shape the mechanics and let them loose the way they were meant to be, and that's the one thing is like, I'm hoping that if this comes down to the case that JJ McCarthy plays in a Vikings uniform, that the hope is, I mean, you're going from a Jim Harbaugh, like grit mentality where you are literally fighting every chance to win those games to then coming into Minnesota with Kevin O'Connell to where it's like, you have the mental mindset and the grit. Now let's help with the mechanics. And then that's where I think that could very much be, a big step in the right direction for Minnesota.
Yeah, man. I'm telling you, man, JJ McCarthy, man, keep an eye out for him. I don't put too much weight into the NFL combine. All right. I think all of those quarterbacks look good at the NFL combine because you're in tank tops and shorts. And you should be able to throw the ball when there's no pressure. You're just throwing the rock. You're playing catch. You know what I mean? So you should look good. But I'm gonna tell you, man, keep an eye on JJ McCarthy. I will not be surprised if a team takes him over a Drake May or over a Jaden Daniels. You know what I mean? Now, Drake May, because to me, it's this. To me, so this is my thing. Caleb Williams, to me, has the most, I would say, like talent as far as he's probably the spectacular, right? Where you say the throws, they compare him to the Mahomes, which we got to stop comparing people to Mahomes, bro. That's a lot of pressure.
Like I'm gonna tell you right now. Optometrists at this point in this.
Yeah. For sure. That's a lot of pressure, man. But I guess Mahomes-esque, right? With some of the throws he makes, the sidearms and stuff like that. And I think he's obviously going to be off the board. Somebody's either going to trade up to get him, like with the Bears, whether that be Washington or something like that, or anything. But I do believe like Drake May, yeah, he's getting a lot of hype. I like Drake May. I wouldn't be mad if the Vikings got Drake May, but I do have other options. Like I go Caleb Williams, then I go Jaden Daniels, then I go JJ McCarthy. So those are my 3. Now the rest fall behind that. And if it happens, the truth of the matter is this, man. This quarterback draft is so thick because we're not even bringing up the guys that, like you said, the Bo Nix that are going to fall a little bit, and then you got the Spencer Rattlers. And I'm going to tell you who else is going to go viral during the NFL Combine that I talked about is Joe Milton, which people don't like Joe Milton. Yep. But I'm going to tell you, once those scouts see him flick the ball 90 yards down the field, they're going to write articles about it. He's going viral during the NFL Combine. I promise you they're going to talk about him. Right?
I feel like a team that if they don't get their luck at quarterback, honestly, I could maybe see a Joe Milton in Seattle. To be honest, because I think that might work. That might convince guys like DK to stay. That would be really interesting. But I'm like, these quarterbacks, I mean, even the late rounders between Joe Milton's got the arm. If you
Right.
put him in the right system and let him loose, that arm will be used for a good reason. And then at the same time, I think you're going to get plenty of high IQ and accuracy out of Sam Hartman as I've watched him
Yeah.
in the times in Notre Dame. And so I think you could get a very valuable quarterback from there as long as the system fits.
Right.
But my thing is, and my side note with Drake May before moving on is, I saw a film that made me think a little bit about Drake May. And one of those films is that there was a pass rush on his blind side that he kind of looked stiff in the pocket. That scares me a little bit because it makes me feel like if you're going to have a Drake May in front of this offense, you better hope you've got a left tackle because otherwise he's going to probably be stiff, and I'm afraid that spells injury riddle to me. But again, there's positive upsides. But again, if you find these little nuggets here and there, and the hope is that it's like you and I are both in the war room. We see what's going on from there, and like we could see these flaws, but how do we make it work? How do we make it better? So it's going to be crazy to see that with the draft. And again, I hope for the best of success with all these quarterbacks because we are in a wave now with all these young quarterbacks than what we were used to watching with Brett Favre and Big Ben and Peyton and all these guys. And now we're seeing the next generation. So a side note, and my thing is like the Cowboys are going to be the Cowboys. But what was your thoughts on that when they hired Mike Zimmer? Because as a former coach of this team, there was some of it that I'm like, I like the defensive build, but do we kind of have a little bit of some second thoughts? Because remember, he's going into a defense with Trayvon Diggs and Micah Parsons and Marcus Lawrence. Do we kind of see a little bit of like consistency there now that Dan Quinn is out of the building?
I think so, man. I think he's gonna bring back that four. Do they run a 4-3? Did they run a 4-3
I think they did run a 4-3.
Okay, because I'm gonna tell you, man, Mike Zimmer. I was a huge fan of Mike Zimmer, man. Now the last 2 years, obviously, he had a lot going on. I started to look deeper into it, and it was bigger than football for Mike Zimmer. We realized how his son, RIP to his son, passed away. I think that was last year or the year before. It was definitely after he got fired from the Minnesota Vikings job. But again, that was something that probably was lingering. He had his wife. He had a bunch of life situations that he hid. And the big thing was, hey, he's fear-based. He's mad all the time and this, that, and the third, man. But there's a lot of really big names that respect Mike Zimmer. Mike Zimmer is going to be great for the Dallas Cowboys. And it's funny, I called it, right when Quinn got fired. I said, Mike Zimmer's on the way to Dallas. I just knew it, man, because him and Jerry Jones they have a relationship and it just felt right. Like Mike Zimmer, it just felt right. And it's funny that they picked him. I'm like, dang, I got it right on the head, man. I felt good about that. Cause I'm going to tell you what he's going to change is this. Dan Quinn, doesn't believe in true linebackers, man. I think that affected them this year. I'm going to tell you right now, Mike Zimmer going to go get a linebacker. Mike Zimmer's getting a linebacker. Like there's going to be no more of those safeties playing linebackers when Mike Zimmer touches that field. Like he's going to find him a prototypical linebacker in the draft. He's going to demand that. And that's going to be beneficial for the Dallas Cowboys, man. They need that. I think it's going to work, man. I want to see it work. I think it's going to work. But again, they are going real old school, though. They are going old school, which nothing wrong with that. You're going to be going against these younger guys that are trying to be more innovative, running these weird defenses that have these 3 safeties and 4 safeties and no linebackers and stuff because the game's evolving. So we'll have to see, like when you have McCarthy, or what is it? Zimmer.
You got Mike McCarthy, you got Mike Zimmer, and you got Brian Schottenheimer.
Yeah. Like so you're gonna have an old school football team there as far as the way they're probably looking to build it, and it could be a good thing. You know what I mean? It's actually interesting. Let's see what it does, and let's see, maybe they try to change the narrative. Like, hey, see, all of these young cats coming in, getting these jobs are trying to change the game. Let's show them how to play some old school football, and let's get back to to get back to the roots. You know what I mean? And that might be what Jerry Jones is trying to paint for
It's
sure.
kind of funny because a lot of these offensive coaches, what's crazy about it is we're so pivotal to offense now that
Yeah.
it's just like when a lot of these DC jobs open up, good God, all these candidates are
Yeah.
just so high quality DCs. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, Brian Flores was a high quality one, and
Yeah.
things may not have worked in Miami, but still, I'd take him with defense any day of the week.
Right.
So, and you know what? I mean, for Dallas, that's going to be interesting knowing the fact that you got Dan Quinn twice a year and you've got Kellen Moore in the Eagles twice a year. So
That is going to be
that
crazy.
is going to feel a little uncomfortable and awkward for quite
Yeah.
some time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Hey, but hey, you know what, man? I love it, man. That's why we love this game. We love following the
yes.
game, man. They keep the shout out to the NFL, man, for keeping it entertaining, man. And to your point, really quick about like the Brian Floreses and stuff like that. Like, I think people just need to realize, like, everybody's not meant to be a head coach. And everybody's not meant to be a defensive coordinator, and everybody's not meant to be an offensive coordinator. Sometimes you're just meant to be one, man. You're meant to be one of the others, whatever you. And you know what? I'm a firm believer in Brian Flores. As good as you are, and as much people might want to throw the checkbook at you next season if you take the Vikings defense up to a top 10 because you actually changed our defense around because we were bottom feeders, and then you moved us up to 15th, I believe it was. We finished, and I'm gonna tell you that's a big leap because we were 31st last year. Literally, we were bad. And that's a big leap. You jumped us up. But again, I think you are a defensive coordinator. I think that's what you are, and that's what you should embrace. And you still making big money. You're having fun. You get to focus on your defense. Do that. I think some of these guys need to stop trying to. I mean, obviously, it's hard to tell them, hey, I want to be a head coach. I mean, because obviously that might be the goal. I guess that's the pinnacle, right? But some people just need to say, man, look, I'm built for defense. I'm a defensive coordinator. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to be the best at that. And I think that would, you would see a lot more quality if people just thought like that. You know what I mean?
Good Lord, man. And here's the thing. If we've learned anything is that we've learned with defensive coaches is don't be over your skis. Yeah, I'm talking about Brandon Staley here
Yeah.
because so-called smarts and so-called, defensive mindset, that didn't work out well. But if you're, again, if you're great as a coordinator, I'd stick to the script because I mean, I can name so many. Ryan Flores, Vic Fangio,
Mhm.
D'Amico Ryan's now a head coach, and he works
Mhm.
well because even being a former player, I've spoke about this. When you've played in the game before, you
Yeah.
connect with the players. You
Right.
relate to them. So, and again, I'm interested to see what Mike McDonald's going to do in Seattle because I don't know if he's going to translate that same defense from Baltimore into Seattle, and then how he's going to play the offense. So, that'll be interesting. But
Yeah, it will be.
real quick before letting you go is so the NFC North, we know that this is getting tougher, and we know that there is a lot of expectations that's basically handed from here. But looking for this, I mean, you said it before early on. You gotta stick to the script from here because Detroit's gotten there. The Packers now are patient and they still continue to show why they dominate, at least in the division, because they're so patient. They're
Mhm.
not very emotional and not like, they're not like checking their auras, Aaron Rodgers, but they are a team that they trust their components. Their quarterback takes a little bit of time, but good God, that transformation all the way from early September to what we saw there late in the season, good God, that leaves a lot of positive hopes.
Mhm.
So that means the Vikings have a lot of work to do, and they've really got to show for it. I mean, what would you say in the best summarization, your game plan moving into it? Because we know we talked the draft, we know that we may potentially talk free agency, but this game plan's got to be true and legit to stick to it if they want to really make noise in the NFC North.
Yeah, so my plan, if I was in working for the organization, I would just let's just say I'm GM RAPZ. I'm looking into the future, and I'm not even going to I'm not going to worry about what the Lions are doing, the Packers are doing, and the Bears are doing at this moment right now, because again, we have some contracts on our roster that are holding us back. See, and I tell our fan base this: you pay a guy like Kirk Cousins 40 million, 45, whatever he's aiming to get right now. You got to think about it. Daniel Jones got paid 40 million. All right. So Kirk's looking at that, and his agent McCartney is a beast. He's a savage. Like, he's gonna be saying, Kirk, you want to take 30 when Daniel Jones just got paid for? We're getting you 50. Hell, you talking about, right? Like, so I just can't wrap my head around you paying a guy like Kirk Cousins that much money and yet still building a Super Bowl winning team. And if you, as a fan of the Vikings, if you bring Kirk Cousins back, you try to make the money work to bring Daniil back, and you find a way to extend Justin Jefferson for 5 years and make him the highest paid non-quarterback, you are giving me signals that you're trying to win now. All right, this year, right now. Like, this isn't 2 years down the road plan. This is you're trying to hold up the Lombardi, at least compete for it this year coming up. And I just don't think that the team's ready for that, regardless if you bring those three pieces back. And so that's why my plan and what I think needs to happen is fall back a little bit. There's nothing wrong with falling back. Like, I mean, yes, the NFC North it's pretty stiff, but I don't think it's the stiffest. So I think even if you could possibly try to take a step back, say you move off of Kirk, get a rookie quarterback like me and you were talking about, get a Jaden Daniels, actually take your chance, extend Justin Jefferson. Daniil may have to walk, but find a piece there. Maybe you can get a second tier defensive end free agency, right? And you possibly could still win the division though, like, honestly. Like, you really could, because I don't think that our division isn't like the AFC West, where that the Chiefs most likely are going to probably be the number one team, or you got like the AFC North where the Ravens are probably going to be at the top of it as long as nothing drastic happens. So I think that we still have an open door to where even if we think we're taking a step back, we still might can win or even come in second place in our division. But what we're not going to do is bring Kirk back, do all these extra moves that we've been trying for. You got to think about this, Jake. We've been doing this same formula, this competitive rebuild, for 7 years. Like, think about this, if we extend Kirk Cousins or sign Kirk Cousins this offseason in the next couple of weeks, this will be the 7th year we've tried to build a team around this guy. It's just doesn't work, man. You know what I mean? At what point do you sit back and just say, bro, like, how many more years do we got to do this? Like, yes, his stats look great at the end of the season. I get it. You know what I mean? I get it. He throws for 4,000 yards. Yep. Good job. You know what I mean? But what are we doing here, man? So, man, to answer your question, man, to sum her up, man, I think we should go young. That's just like the straightforward. Go young. Keep your main piece in Justin Jefferson. Although, there is talks about, do you really need a superstar wide receiver to win a Super Bowl? You could argue that, right? You can argue that you don't really need to pay a wide receiver that much money. But to me, I mean, he's pretty much what you got on your team. Just pay him, because if you're going to let Daniil walk, and if you are going to go and get a quarterback and not pay Kirk, you got to give your money to somebody. Why not give it to the guy that's breaking all the records and stuff? Just give it to him. You know what I mean? And go from there. So, man, go young, man. Go young. Start building while you have a chance, before the Packers start taking off on you, and then you're 5-6 years behind the 8 ball, and we become the new Detroit Lions in the NFC North. You know what I mean? As far as like years ago, not what they are now, but
yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And the thing of it is that, you lucky enough, you've got a scoring machine in Jordan Addison, that you're not paying him anything. So at the very least you could do, you better find a way to basically sweeten this deal up to keeping JJ in Minnesota. And then, like I've said it before, get him a quarterback that can win all those games, prime time, and get into the playoffs and win a playoff game. That shows promise. He will stay there for as long as he wants. And so I think that'd be a great fit for it. But man, the insights, everything you needed to know about Minnesota Vikings, man, there's not many like him. So you guys definitely got to keep up with him. So you were once Purple Pocket. Now we hear you getting vocal as Vocal Vike, man. Where can people find you when the skull chant goes out loud and people got to tune into your stuff?
Man, let's go, man. I'll give you the horn, man. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, man. Follow me on all the platforms, all the ones, X, TikTok, Instagram, and obviously YouTube at Vocal Vike. And Jake's right. I was Purple Pocket Podcast, but I changed it due to just marketing type deals and just knowing like, hey, I'm an individual. We getting vocal. We about to talk about the Vikings. It just felt right. It felt right. So I had to do a little rebranding, man. So, but I appreciate you, Jake, as always, man. We got to do this some more for sure. We got to make sure we always, stay locked in, and I'm gonna make sure I'm always tapped in with you. But I appreciate everybody that listens to this episode. And yeah, man, let's get it, man. Exciting off season, man. It's gonna be a lot to talk about.
I do got to tell you though, because at least I love the rebrand of it, because here's the thing, it allows you to really use the horns, man.
Yeah.
Especially with that V. That's why I'm like, I freaking love it. I love
Yeah,
it
man.
very, very much.
Appreciate it, man.
But I'll tell you
Appreciate
what though, because I'm definitely keeping in contact with you, because I think I got something special up over here. But we'll talk right off the set, man. But
Let's
so
do it,
good
man.
to have you, man. Appreciate you coming
I
on.
appreciate you, Jake, man. Appreciate you, man.
Absolutely, brother.
Later.
Yeah, Rab, man, always bringing up the best stuff of Minnesota Vikings, and there's never a dull moment with that. I mean, he literally, I've said this before. I talked to my wife about it. I said, no, he really reminds me of like my really good friend in Vegas, And so like to have the energy, the hype, and to be diehard about the Minnesota Vikings, but it is true. You've got to rip the Band-Aid off with Kirk Cousins, because this is clearly not working. That's great and all if you're talking about personal stats, but good God. I mean, if this is not translating prime time and playoff wins, I don't want to hear about it. Because at the end, like, have any of us have seen Jeff George? Have any of us have like seen, some of these quarterbacks? I get it. But at the same time, it's not going to help your franchise win if you ain't winning it that much. We'll take a break from here, but we're going to have a little bit of a story sum up as well coming up here on the bottom half of the Snake Sports Talk Show.
Snake Sports Talk Show is sponsored by Muscle Tech, with hundreds of supplements and vitamins to choose from, all packed with 100% all-natural proven ingredients. You can be sure that Muscle Tech will give you the edge and the boost to train and look like your fit and healthy best, whatever your goals are. Try Muscle Tech today and use promo code SNAKESPORTS to save 30% off your purchases.
Listen up, sports fans. Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
As you know, we'll end up in your seat with SeatGeek when you go online today. Use promo code SNAKESPORTS, $20 off of your first purchase of your first ticket. I'm going to be attending the Avalanche and the Blackhawks game, by the way. Wife and I, we got our tickets. You don't want to end up missing it. That is SeatGeek.com. Go online or download on your mobile device, the Google Play, and the App Store. So I really did want to end up getting a side note from here. I don't cover it a whole lot, but you know what? When we start to see big-time talent, we've got to end up talking about it. So this just hit about an hour ago that because right now college hoops is almost close to wrapping up to where it gets absolutely bonkers and madness in March. And so I'm really excited about it. But my big takeaway is that the biggest name right now in women's college basketball is Caitlin Clark. This woman is such a stud, I mean, and this is somebody who honestly is a scoring machine. Now, as for me, like in my hometown, I have paid attention to the Aces. I have watched them from game in, game out. I even went to a game. I went to a great game between them and the New York Liberty. They're a great, great team. And the fact that they're back-to-back WNBA champions speaks a lot of volumes. So when I watch Caitlin Clark, I can't help but literally see big-time talent before my very eyes. And look, this is what sports is always blessed with. When you get big-time talent and generational talents, that's just unbelievable, and you just can't help but just have your eyes so glued to the screen because you're just waiting to see what they're going to do next. This is unbelievable. And so Caitlin Clark, she just broken Kelsey Plum's all-time NCAA scoring record. So what does this tell you a lot about Caitlin Clark when she gets into the WNBA? Number one, she's going to be an absolute scoring machine. Number two, comes from a place like Iowa, very corn-fed, and at the same time, it's also a state that's very big into their college town. It's a college town state. Plus, they also love their baseball when they have that Field of Dreams field out there in Iowa. So they're big on corn. They're big on, college. So, I mean, you watch their games, whether it's football or in basketball, they love their college sports. It's a college town. But the thing about Caitlin Clark is that she's going to honestly take the WNBA by storm. We saw this with Asia Wilson. We saw this with Breanna Stewart. And we've seen this with Kelsey Plum. I think we're going to see this with Caitlin Clark. Now, this year, the Spurs have Victor Wembanyama, somebody who is not from the States, is from France, and a guy that really is, like, from the size to his mental IQ, the kid is smart. And I know a lot of people put so much pressure on this kid, but that kid is going to be a stud for years and years and years. But he's an international star. We don't have a whole lot of homegrown players that honestly could take the league by storm. It's all international between Wemby and Giannis and Luka Doncic. It's all international in basketball. But at least in the WNBA, we're getting a lot of really talented and very fearless women out there on the court. And I think Caitlin Clark is very much going to be that next athlete who's going to take that league by storm. I think is honestly going to shape up, and whomever may have the top pick, that is going to be one of them that is just going to change the look of a franchise. And I mean, look, you look at a lot of different franchises that are up and out there. I mean, the ones that I really do think that do need at least a little more help. I mean, the Indiana Fever, the Minnesota Lynx, a lot of different teams out there. But because again, in order to compete with some of the tops like the New York Liberty or the Vegas Aces, I mean, you have to be able to be the best. I always thought that the Connecticut Sun were always the middle of the pack type of team, but they're really good. They got a lot of really good ladies there on the court. But I think Caitlin Clark, she is just unbelievable. I think she's also somebody that could really be just that next generational talent. Because look, it ain't just about all the men, whether it's in football or in college basketball or even just in hockey. Women have a voice too, and they have absolutely some of these big time talents. I mean, good God, I can't stress enough how many talented college softball girls we have. I mean, they compete higher in a level than some of the men's baseball do. But it just tells you how lucky we are in sports to really just cover it and to really just, talk about and rant and rave about it. That's what we do. So I think Caitlin Clark, the second that she ends up making her appearance in the WNBA, is going to be one for the ages. But there are so many talented women out there in sports, whether you look at the WNBA or you look at, college softball or even just professional. But the fact of the matter is that this is just another one of those pillars that Caitlin Clark is amongst many that very much could be a huge impact, and even in a sport that's growing. The WNBA I mean, we're showing a lot more love and respect for this league. Now we know we need to show a lot more of it, but I'm telling you, it's growing. It's very much growing. The music, the sport, I think the diversity between, you look at the NBA and the WNBA and how, how they correlate with each other when it comes to talents. You can't hate on that. So I think Caitlin Clark, she's going to be the next big thing. And you're going to hear about it for the next 10, 15 years. Mark my words. That is definitely an athlete that is nothing but get your hands and knees dirty, condition, shoot every single day out on the court, whether it's, a practice or an off day. That is very much a role model and a pillar lots of women in basketball are definitely going to witness, and they are seeing this very firsthand. All right, guys, that's going to do it here for the show. I appreciate everybody who had joined in tonight. Shout out to my good man, Rap, of Vocal Vike. Man, never, ever, ever a dull beat when it comes to my good man, Rap there. But appreciate him stopping by. Like I said, I got a lot off my chest early on, but everybody knows how real I can get. But I appreciate all of you guys for continuing to show your supports and tuning in on the show. Like, follow, subscribe, and hit the bell button. Keep you up to date so you don't miss any future episodes. We got a lot coming up. Next week, we got a big week. Deb Whitcos is going to be joining us next week. We have that planned out, and we've got so many other interviews waiting up. We've got my good friend Mikey Hughes going to be talking about the Chicago sports, whether it's the Bears, the Cubs, or the Bulls. He knows everything about Chicago that there is to know. So appreciate all of you guys stopping on by. Take care. Don't forget like, follow, and subscribe. And keep yourselves up to date. And we will see you next week on the next episode of the Snake Sports Talk Show. Have a great night and enjoy the rest of your weekend as well. And stay safe out there, please. Appreciate all of you guys jumping on. Have a great night.